Now, for the first half of this episode, I was a little worried about the direction that we were heading in, because I love all of the elements that this series has thrown at us. The cooking, the hunting, the culture, the main objective, everything about it I do enjoy, but we are at the halfway point, and it is important to focus more back on the main objective, because otherwise we won't get anywhere close to a satisfying stopping point. It is based off an ongoing manga, I don't expect an ending, but it is important to shift the focus back to the objective. And I was a little worried that focusing on the hunter that we get introduced this episode, like basically he's killed 200 bears, he wants a new challenge, something that he doesn't understand the ins and outs on basically how to kill, which is a wolf, and the only wolf around is of course our main girl's basically pet wolf. And then we have Sugimoto kind of trying to hunt down the deer that he wounded, and he doesn't want to let it suffer. And it's this whole kind of like chase between two different objectives. Both are hunters, but with different ideals. But I was worried that this was just going to be a random guy and that's that. But I am glad that it tied back that he's actually one of the people who has tattoos on their backs. And this episode was actually pretty interesting with how it kind of played with the circle of life. We have Sugimoto, who really is very different to this hunter, because this hunter definitely strikes me as someone who enjoys killing. He enjoys the hunt. Yes, he's going to take the meat and the pelts and things like that. But ultimately, to him, this is a game, this is a trophy hunt. He really just likes to kill things. But then when it comes to our main cast, it definitely seems more of like this circle of life, this more spiritual thing. It's not just about enjoying killing animals, it's about their life kind of fusing into your own. You use their meat to feed you, which lets you live. Like when the deer gets killed, Sugimoto puts his hands inside the deer for warmth, and because his hands were freezing, now they're not. It becomes much more different than just, I want to kill this thing because it's tough to kill. No, this is the circle of life, whereas the other hunter was more about just the thrill of killing. I thought it was actually a very interesting concept because you don't see that type of storytelling and kind of character building often in anime. Like, it's very different from modern anime, which is something that I think Geno Studio has done very well with their 3 anime projects to date. They're taking series that are very different from modern anime. What I like is just the idea of having Sugimoto see something in this deer, and it's not until the deer kind of comes charging at him when basically the gun wound has frozen up, there's icicles of blood. It's something that reminds him of himself because it's immortal. It's the immortal deer pretty much, as he is the immortal Sugimoto. And he couldn't kill it because he sees himself in that deer, and it's not until Retar comes in and basically gnaws the deer to death. I thought it was actually interesting how Sugimoto doesn't want to let this deer suffer, but then when it comes to putting him out of his misery, he just sees himself in that. And I think that's so interesting. This deer, despite all the odds being stacked against him, the deer still tried to live, which is exactly what Sugimoto did back in the war and how he got his name. Because there's probably tons of times that he should have died, but he didn't give up and he kind of killed the enemy and got away from it. And I like that. It's so interesting. It's so contrasting to basically the other hunter that we're focusing on in this episode, and it was just absolutely incredible. And there's tons of great comedy. The gang just getting drunk off of sake and just the individual eatings, and then the whole idea basically, you know, one day I'm gonna die, you can't die, Sugimoto. There was just so much great comedy in this episode, and there was a lot of cooking. This basically is a cooking show half the time. There's a lot of good cooking, comedy, things like that. But I do like how this episode, like when you see the whole package, it does become a very plot-focused episode, despite it not feeling like one for like 90% of this episode. It's not until you see, oh, he has a tattoo, this guy is actually important for the plot. This isn't a side detour or anything like that. This actually has major importance. It's going to be interesting to see how next week goes down, because it ends on probably one of the coolest fights we've seen, and we've only seen a small fraction of it, where basically this hunter loses his fingers after Sugimoto chops it off. It's just the most bloody and just well choreographed fight we've seen, I think, in the series to date, and we haven't even seen anything past the intro stages. It's going to be really interesting to see how Sugimoto goes up against this hunter next week, because they really do seem kind of evenly matched. This guy has spirit, he has class in a lot of ways in terms of the class of killing. It's going to be great to see where this goes, because how they end this episode where it looks like Sugimoto has the upper hand, but then ultimately that dog comes in, the gun's no longer a factor, it's all fists versus fists, knives versus knives. How is that going to go down? Like, you expect Sugimoto is going to get out of it, but at the same time, is he going to get out of it unharmed? That's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to see where episode 7 is going to go. I'm going to be interested in seeing if this is going to be one of the people that Sugimoto is going to have to kill. I don't feel like this guy is going to be one that they can just tie to a tree and trace over his tattoo. This definitely strikes me as someone who they're going to have to kill, otherwise he's going to come back and bite them in the ass. Probably literally. The guy is very horny based on this episode. He really loves talking about his boner, and basically he seems to get off on killing things, which is pretty messed up, but it'll be interesting to see where they go next week. But let me know your thoughts. What did you think of this episode? What do you think of this Hunter character? I thought he was pretty damn entertaining, I have to say. He did crack me up a couple of times here, but I definitely like Sugimoto's way of hunting much better than his. But let me know what you're feeling down in that comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like, and if you're new, also be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.